Imagine the open road stretching endlessly under a dim twilight, old highways cutting through forgotten towns and vast empty landscapes. It is the age before the digital surveillance that now watches every corner. Between 1972 and 1995, America was haunted by a ghostly figure known now as the Nomad Butcher, a drifter who traversed at least 8 states, committing brutal murders whose echoes were muffled by his constant, restless movement. The Nomad Butcher was a man of shadows and silence, unknown to the law enforcement agencies baffled by his trail of grisly crimes scattered across thousands of miles. From the woodlands of Oregon to the deserts of New Mexico, in the industrial outskirts of Chicago to the quiet backroads of Alabama, he left behind a haunting pattern, a trail of missing persons, mutilated bodies, and unrelenting mystery. The first known wounds appeared in 1972 in a small town outside Portland, Oregon. A homeless man named David Kramer was found dismembered alongside an abandoned railway track. For the lonely and disenfranchised, David's fate was tragically common, but the brutality, the precise, almost surgical cuts, set this killer apart. Although no one knew it at the time, this gruesome scene would mark the beginning of a nomadic nightmare. Over the years, similar cases with horrifying hallmarks surfaced up and down the country. In October of 1978, in a supply shed near Little Rock, Arkansas, decomposed remains of a young woman were discovered, her body butchered, her identity unknown for years. Forensic science would later link her murder to the same killer who terrorized towns hundreds of miles away. Unlike many serial killers who remain fixed in one area, the Nomad Butcher seemed to wear the highways as his cloak. Without any discernible pattern to his appearances, he exploited the disconnected and isolated, drifters, runaways, transient workers, whose disappearances often went unnoticed or unreported until too late. His methods were chillingly consistent: murder followed by calculated dismemberment, sometimes leaving body parts at disparate locations, almost taunting investigators and shredding the hope of immediate capture. He wielded knives with chilling precision, earning the moniker that whispered fear into countless hearts. Yet despite the brutal signature and the growing number of victims, the Nomad Butcher slipped through the fingers of justice for over 2 decades. Police departments in different states struggled in isolation. Communication was limited, technology primitive, and many victims were tragically classified as unidentified or unconnected disappearances. The frustration among investigators was palpable. A seasoned detective from Illinois once remarked, "He wasn't just a killer, he was a ghost, haunting the roads and vanishing before we even knew he was near." Then as forensics advanced, slight threads began to emerge. Fibers found on victims, shared details in witness accounts, and a faint trace in interstate communication linked a series of brutal murders across disparate regions. A name never publicly revealed in his lifetime finally emerged in cold case files. A man named Michael Hayes, a drifter with deep trauma but extraordinary cunning. Hayes's life story resembled the dark tapestry of many serial killers: childhood abandonment, a fractured family, years of substance abuse and spells in prison. But his transience became his advantage, a relentless movement that left chaos in his wake but eluded capture. The eventual unraveling came just before his death in 1997. A cold case team reopened files, combining new DNA analysis with cross-jurisdictional data mapping. The terrifying mosaic of victims and crimes led to undeniable identification. Though Hayes had passed away, his reign left a stain on America's heartland. The Nomad Butcher's story is a stark reflection on vulnerability, how the forgotten become prey, how the disjointed system of law enforcement once allowed a killer to roam free, and how technological advances can finally stitch together the fragmented lives shattered by one man's dark journey across America. Today, his victims are finally remembered, not as nameless statistics, but as lives stolen and stories unfinished. The Nomad Butcher remains a haunting legend, a reminder of the shadows where evil once traveled, silent and unseen. Thank you for joining this exploration into one of America's scariest, most elusive serial killers. Please like and subscribe to hear more true crime stories that peel back the curtain on the darkest corners of human nature.